Hi, welcome. Welcome to the College of Architecture and Design at Lawrence Technological University. And to those joining online through YouTube, we appreciate you tuning in. Before I continue, please silence your phones and close your laptops and bring your attention to the front. Thank you. Um, I am Carla Diana. For those of you who haven't met me, I am the director of the product design program and associate professor, teaching courses like wearable technology, robotics in society, and urban mobility. So there's always been a great link between the work that Alexandra does and some of my interests. At Lawrence Technological University's College of Architecture and Design, or COAD, we focus on how design is evolving, especially as new technologies and changing professional practices reshape what designers do and how they do it. COAD is the home to degree programs in graphic design, product design with a concentration in mobility, game design, interior design, and architecture, along with our Master of Arts in Design and Technology. Across these areas, we pay close attention to emerging tools, industry workflows, and the cultural forces shaping the built and designed world, so our curriculum stays relevant, rigorous, and future-facing. Our Design and Technology series, which Alexandra is a part of, is one way that we do that, inviting leading voices into the conversation to expand how we think about architecture and design today and where the fields are headed next. I'm just going to remind you to register for the upcoming Design and Technology talks on Thursday, this April 2nd, next week. We've got a series panel discussion, Stories of the Affleck House. On Thursday, April 7th, we will have a series talk featuring Leslie Ann Noel. Today, Senior Brand and Creative Designer for Global Cadillac Design, Alexandra Dymowska, will present The Art of Travel, How Design and Storytelling Drive Brand Desire. After her talk, Alexandra will answer questions. I'm going to keep this brief because I don't want to take any time from Alexandra's talk, but Alexandra was definitely one of the first people I thought of when I was asked to recommend names for the Design Technology lecture series. We met many years ago when I first moved to Michigan. We met through a mutual friend from New York, and we became quick friends when we discovered that we shared a passion for industrial design and an interest in how storytelling can shape every aspect of designing a product or experience, taking a really holistic approach to design. As I mentioned, she's currently Senior Brand Strategy and Creative Designer at Global Cadillac Design. And she's really shaping how Cadillac defines luxury and everything about the experience of everything that touches the brand. She's also working on advanced concept programs, which she'll talk about today, like Opulent Velocity, Elevated Velocity, and Soleil. Alexandra originally trained in art and art history in Europe and the US, started out as an exhibiting artist, and later earned her master's in industrial design at Pratt as a Jack Kent Cooke Award recipient. So please help me in welcoming Alexandra.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today and share my thoughts about how to use design and storytelling to drive brand desire. And I would like to begin with a question. So I would like to ask you to recall a moment when you arrived somewhere that felt special and what that arrival looked, sound, and felt like. Anyone would like to share an example? Carla?
Sure. I would say, so I have an uncle who lives on the island of Sardinia. Mm-hmm. And I remember even as a child, the first time walking in the door, and there were plants everywhere, and the smell of tomato sauce cooking was just everywhere around us. And I remember coming into a small space and then going through a door and seeing this garden. And that's always stayed with me.
I think it's a wonderful example of painting a picture of a place. And chances are that your uncle or the architect of the house thought about how that experience was going to unfold, what kind of a feeling that they wanted to create. And so many times when you enter a hotel lobby or a flagship store, there will be a very particular experience in a story, visual story, or even a conceptual story that unfolds itself in front of you. And I would like to quote Bruce Hanna. Bruce was a professor of mine at Pratt Institute, who said, "Design is storytelling, but the story has to be designed too." And I think this is really at the core of the work that I do. Bruce beautifully captures the essence of design as a narrative process. I first fell in love with the notion of design as storytelling when I came across a Newsweek issue featuring office accessories designed by Bruce Hanna and Aisha Bursell for Knoll. Of all things, there was a picture of a tape dispenser that the article said was inspired by a movement of a wave. At the time, I was a fine artist researching graduate schools, and the idea that something so ordinary and so mundane could be given beauty and meaning through a metaphor really resonated with me. That article mentioned that Bruce and Aisha taught industrial design at Pratt, and that was it. I thought, I want to think like that. So for the next 3 years at Pratt, I trained my eyes and mind in the three-dimensional design theory the school is known for. I learned to think through metaphors, to see objects and spaces as stories in physical form. The experience laid the foundation for what I would call my lyrical approach to design. And under Bruce's mentorship, I wrote a master's thesis called Quiet Resonance, bringing depth and mystery to everyday objects and spaces. And at the time, I had no idea this way of thinking would eventually lead me to what I do today, which is creating and telling the story of Cadillac design to help drive brand desire. So let's talk about designing from the story out. You may already be familiar with the traditional roles in automotive design studio: an exterior designer, interior design, color and materials, and more recently, interface and user experience design. Today, I want to show you how all of these disciplines come together as one coherent story to communicate brand values, and how storytelling itself has become a powerful design tool in my work with Cadillac. So with a glimpse into the studio, I'd like to zoom in on specific role within this ecosystem. So my work is about putting the story before the sketch and telling the story to our audience once the sketch takes on a physical form. It may be a finished concept vehicle, it may be a production vehicle, or it could be a space. Today, people don't just want beautiful objects. They want to understand the story behind them. They are looking for products with depth, with meaning, that feels authentic. And that has to come from within the brand, not added on at the end. My effort is to bring that inner story to light. It's about bringing focus to framing the ideas that help shape our products, making sure that we all stay connected to a clear narrative, so everything has a consistent look and feel. And increasingly focusing on the experience of how we express Cadillac brand visually through storytelling across products and environments and touchpoints. This is where design, brand strategy, and creative direction all converge in crafting the story first, then letting the story guide what we create. So coming out of the role and what I focus on day to day, I want to zoom out and talk about why storytelling is so central to this kind of work. Because when we talk about design in a studio like Cadillac's, we're not just talking about surfaces and shapes, we're really talking about stories. So the first key thought I'd like to share with you is design is a storytelling medium. A brand is not the product itself, it's the idea behind the product, it's the story, the why and the who. Design, on the other hand, is the how. It's how the story is expressed. how we make it visible and tangible through form, visuals, materials, details, and interactions. Design communicates purpose, emotion, and meaning. Secondly, it's crucial that the strategy for storytelling is holistic. Most desirable brands don't bolt the story on at the end. They design holistically. Story and design are choreographed together from the start. A clear, intentional story is embedded in the work and carried consistently across product, experience, and communication. So every interaction reinforces the same emotional narrative. And thirdly, because we're talking about Cadillac, I want to talk about storytelling and luxury. This becomes especially powerful in luxury. In luxury, people don't buy mere products. They buy stories they want to live in. And in the identity-based luxury, they are not just buying an object or even an experience. They are buying a future version of themselves that they are ready to become. That's the level at which storytelling and design have to operate when you're shaping a luxury brand like Cadillac. So we've talked about storytelling and design at a conceptual level, how the brand is the why and the who, and design is the how that makes the story tangible. Now I want to show you how that thinking comes to life within Cadillac's design philosophy and manifests in Cadillac concept vehicles. So in tandem with electrification, we envisioned a new way of framing design and called it the art of travel, which is about expressing effortless travel through extraordinary means, elevating the experience through holistic design and futurist design language. This approach shows up in several distinct but connected dimensions. So within this art of travel umbrella, we've created three dimensions. One of them is the art of individuality, which is where each vehicle is imagined as a commissioned singular work of art, reflecting the personality of the character of its owner. The art of exhilaration was essentially about performance, where racing excellence and performance engineering inform what luxury feels like behind the wheel. And thirdly, the art of automation, where artfully tailored intuitive experiences enhance the greatest modern luxury, which is personal time. Together, these lenses help us tell a larger story: Cadillac's pioneering innovation, its vision of American luxury, and the journey of reclaiming the standard of the world. So as part of the brand transformation and the holistic strategy I mentioned, design set the tone, along with our marketing partners, helped to create a visual identity system, which expresses the brand values of modern luxury with an edge, with a contemporary monochromatic crest. Colors from the legacy crest have been embedded into imagery and color accents, keeping the brand continuity. And here you see a quick visual of the photographic tone of the brand. So for example, documents like that, in order to maintain brand consistency throughout all the partners that we work with, we share them as guidelines. And so it's a sort of a measurement of, or a target, how the brand needs to show up. And we actually use these not only publicly, but also in the studio when designers create. Like even recently, we're relying on Viscom AI creating vehicles and environments. So this serves as a guide, as a tonality for designers as well. So let's look at how this comes to life in practice, starting with our bespoke luxury bookend as the first example of this design philosophy and visual identity. So Celestic, who has seen Celestic somewhere on the road? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. That's pretty good actually, because they're quite rare. So Celestic was conceived as the brand's handcrafted all-electric ultra-luxury bespoke flagship. It was as a new expression of the same bold futurist spirit and sophistication and optimism that Cadillac is revered for. And the mission of the Celestic was reclaiming the standard of the world. And if you, as industrial designers, you might have heard what the standard of the world is. It's a tied to Cadillac receiving a Dewar Trophy for precision and standardization of parts in, I believe, 1908, which gave Cadillac the standard of the world moniker. So the concept envisioned each Celestic to be a singular work of art, able to be customized to reflect the taste, preferences, and personality of its owner. So what you're seeing here on the image is, and I should mention that all the photography that I'm showing you of these concepts has been created internally within the design studio. So I mentioned we have exterior designers, interior experience, and so forth, but we also have a very large, very talented team of photographers, videographers, retouchers, AI artists who help to create the visuals to illustrate the ideas. And we also rely on stylists. So part of my work is creating or guiding a stylist of how the talent, what the talent needs to express, how do they need to be styled. So in this image you see the dress, and this was it was a complete kind of a coincidence that our stylist showed up to the set with this particular dress, and it reflected actually a photograph, a dress in a photograph from our archives. So what you're seeing here is a video that we have created that tells the story of what the Celestic looks like and feels like when it was first introduced as a concept. And of course, there's some sort of technical issue. Yeah, I think we lost sound. But so maybe I'll narrate from a visual identity standpoint. Obviously, you're seeing echoing of the photographic tone that I spoke about, but also a very distinctive interior color. And the notion behind Celestic is that it's designed in such a way that it's enabling personalization. So you see that there are a number of zones within the interior design that enable personalization of the interior. And also in the video, you saw that the woman touched a controller which had a goddess on it, and that takes me to talking about the symbol of bespoke. So starting from late 1920s through the late 1950s, every Cadillac had a goddess ornament on it, and she symbolized different things throughout the years and took on a different form. It's actually quite fascinating to review the history, and if you have a moment, I invite you to the Cadillac website where you can kind of go in depth and study what she looked like throughout the years. And so when we were creating the Celestic, which was really about delivering an experience, a bespoke experience, we thought that there needs to be something that symbolizes that. So we returned the image of the goddess in a new form. And so one of the clay sculptors in the studio created her figure, which was then designed to be kind of a version within the vehicle. But she's the symbol of bespoke. So any product that was created at the Cadillac House at Vanderbilt, which is the space where this type of work happens, is marked with the symbol of the goddess. And here's our former vice president of design talking about this process of working with customers one-on-one, with designers helping them make their creations. And again, here's a close-up of the badge that we have designed for every individual Celestic that's created. And so I already mentioned briefly about the Cadillac House at Vanderbilt, and I heard that Gretchen here in the audience has been to the Cadillac House at Vanderbilt. Yes, I hear here. It's a really lovely modernist building, and if you've ever had a chance to take a tour of the GM Technical Center, it's a national historic landmark and really an example of modernist architecture. But we've selected this building in particular to be the home, or the Cadillac House at Vanderbilt, to host clients, is because it felt in part most intimate. It's one of the few single-story buildings on campus. and it was in dire need of renovation. And so we've restored the space and modernized it to help with the design process. So some of the elements that we've introduced to the space kept it fairly open, the way that Saarinen envisioned it. And the initial intention for the space was, it was called the Central Restaurant, and it was an executive dining space. So it was very much an open floor plan. So we kept that, and we actually maintained and restored most of the materials, but enabled the design experience. So whenever we have these ultra high net worth customers arriving, there's the concierge welcoming them when they enter. There's a lounge area. There's a Celestic on the turntable. And the turntable is the modernized part where we actually had to cut a hole out in the floor into the basement to install the turntable, and kind of like an Oculus that lights the Celestic. And then, of course, there's the collaboration area, sort of what we're calling a magic wall that reveals the materials that the clients can have a very, kind of a touch and feel experience. And very large screens that help to represent the client's design in real time. So the designer will walk with them and project on a, this size of almost this screen, what the interior, for example, would look like. And the screen also, the house contains an invaluable piece of art, which is the screen by Harry Bertoia. So it's worth, if you ever have a chance to visit, it's worth visiting just for that. But I want to talk about how we push that story of bespoke design even further. And so in the notion with the Celestic was really kind of personalizing the interior, exterior colors, textures, and so forth. With Soleil, the idea was that you could actually, what if we could change the body style, kind of coach build the vehicle. And so the Soleil was born as an ode to the sun in terms of storytelling and summer, and it was a nod to Cadillac's heritage. And I should mention that I rely very heavily on our archives department that holds materials from over, almost 24 years now of Cadillac's existence, and it's my go-to place for looking for ideas. And so when we're designing the Soleil, the archives department was very helpful in bringing up in the story mining. And so the heritage element here is bringing a color from 1957-58, Eldorado Brome, which was called Manila Cream at the time. And the name Soleil is actually a contraction. It comes from sol, Latin meaning sun, and the LEI comes from the word leisure. And it sounds a little like soleil, like French for the sun. But the whole idea was about enjoying summertime. And so the convertible features a sublime light yellow exterior and interior colors, along with accessories that aid a fresh air aficionado enjoy their summer pursuits. And there's a set of bird calls, user experience identifying bird types, and a silk scarf, a set of glasswell, a journal, and decanter to enjoy an afternoon refreshment al fresco. And for the opening event, we actually have collaborated with a very talented artist who's one of the design directors at GM, who paints these beautiful birds to kind of complete the story. So her work was part of the exhibit. And the craftsmanship is really at the heart of the Cadillac design. So every detail is intentionally designed to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And I hope the audio plays in this video because it's really beautiful. Maybe. It's on YouTube, so if you can, if you would like to hear it without the glitches, please go, because it's a really beautiful. There's a longer form video on YouTube, but this is a visual piece of work that we've created. It was actually shot here in Michigan, and really kind of captures the leisure of beautiful summer. So now let's talk about a more performance-oriented expression of Cadillac. And I'll start with the project GTP, which is a supercharged high-performance vehicle concept in which peak performance and futuristic design converge, embodying our legacy on the racetrack. So the GTP's cutting-edge design comes from the collaboration with Dallara, which is celebrated for championship-winning racing car design, which ensured the GTP hypercar was built with the avant-garde technology and materials. And I had a fortune of sitting next to this concept while it was, being completed, and then when it was not on show, it was sitting next to my desk, and it's pretty surreal to come to, Monday morning, come to your desk and sit next to this, but very, very much a, cutting edge design in terms of the form and the materials. So I have another video and hope that one works. Nope, there's no sound, or maybe there is a little bit of a sound. So we create work that is photographic work that is practically shot, but also rely quite heavily on CG imagery. So this animation was created completely in CG. And that glitch was on purpose. So you saw the concept for the last few years. The concept has been turned into an actual race car. This is from 24-hour Le Mans in 2025. But it's just incredible to see work that comes from a sketch, takes on a physical form as a concept, and then ends up on the track. And on the performance node, one of our most recent projects is the collaboration with Cadillac Formula One to create a testing livery. So this image turns a technical detail into a story, the precision of the F1 suspension set against a field of names. So it's a visual metaphor for how every high-speed moment is built on countless unseen contributions and personal stories. So it has hundreds of names of people who contributed to the F1 car. And design got a chance to conceive the concepts and visualize it. And so moving into the next example of our performance bookend is the elevated velocity concept, which channels the essence of Cadillac V-Series in a bold 2x2 crossover, which was designed to exhilarate it on and off-road, while foreshadowing potential future Cadillac design cues. So one of the reasons why we create these concepts is to explore territories, right? But also explore the design language. And also there are test wells to test public's appetite in where's their resonance, which direction do we? So that helps us strategically in terms of direction. And the concept draws inspiration from elite desert polo athletes who thrive on adrenaline and mastery, converging speed, skill, and elegance, and the Dakar Rally and extreme e-racing. And albeit a bit pixelated, you're seeing some of the products that were created by our industrial design studio that provide the detail to the story. And so in this case, it was this beautiful case that was equipped with a polo mallet and a helmet and bowls and a set of gloves. But also I want to talk a little about the importance of the experience. So exploring the ultimate combination of the full autonomy, convenience, and the hands-on, high-speed terrain driving enjoyment. The elevated velocity focuses on the artful integration of technology and performance. So you're seeing a reel describing the various modes of the elevated velocity. It's really about having no compromise of being in an autonomous mode when you want to recharge or recover, like after a polo game, or you really want to be immersed in the experience of performance. Maybe there's sound? No? No sound on this one. But yeah, that's yet another film. Oh yeah, maybe there is it's a little bit delayed, so the sound is a little delayed. But it's another film that we've created for the reveal of the elevated velocity concept that kind of tells the story of the use case scenario and describes the modes of autonomy and driving at high velocity. So that was a lot to take in, I'm sure. So I want to summarize the key message in the work that I have been doing. The design is a powerful strategic medium for storytelling, and crafting that story with intention and nuanced layers unlocks emotional resonance and fuels brand desire. And at Cadillac, that helps us move from a vehicle that people admire to actually a modern luxury lifestyle they desire. And with that in mind, I would like to leave you with a few practical takeaways that you can carry into your own work. So the three simple principles you can apply, whether you're designing a product or a space or an experience. So one is understand the dreams of your audience. Design that truly moves people will make them want the brand, not just notice it. So that's really insight. So really study who you were designing for and what is it that not only their needs are, their physical needs, but also their emotional needs. Envision the story. So seek the essence of what you are designing. Embed the story in the brief. So it's in there from the beginning. And then design everything to express around it. And that's strategy. And then thirdly, let every element earn its place in the story. Every line, color, detail, and touch points should be there for a reason, contributing to the same emotional narrative. And that's execution and craft. And if you'd like to learn more about these concepts that I just spoke about, there is an extensive website that I helped to create. It's on Cadillac.com/concept vehicles, which goes into detail not only about the ones I've mentioned, but a few other. And if you're interested in learning more about day-to-day work at design and Cadillac and in General Motors in general, go check out the GM Design Instagram. It really has fantastic content. And what you're seeing here is the livery. You saw detail with the names. That's the design of the shakedown livery for the CF1 car, and some images of the opulent velocity, which I did not talk about here. But it's a very exciting source of a resource for creating visuals and telling stories. And with that, I thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed. So I think I've left enough time for Q&A. Oh yes, and so I spoke about GM Design Instagram, which is part of our talent outreach program, really. And today I've invited Krista Vines, who works in our talent and outreach program. So should you have any questions that are related to working at General Motors or the skill sets you might need, she would be great to connect with.
Okay.
Questions, reactions?
I'll go first.
Uh-huh.
Let's get you the mic so that you.
Oh, yeah, but what was, what?
Oh, there's no questions from
Oh,
online.
okay,
Sorry,
I didn't know,
cut it.
I didn't know if you were telling me there was no
Yeah,
time.
we're good,
Okay.
we're good. Apologies.
My question goes to demographics.
Mm-hmm.
The demographic of the luxury auto buyer today is as intensely interested in luxury now as, say, 20 or 30 years ago? I mean, have the demographics shifted in terms of a desire for luxury or desire?
I think in general we're seeing a shift. We're definitely seeing a shift for Cadillac with this new portfolio and kind of transformation that the brand has been through in the recent years. But I think I recently read an article too about the luxury buyers being actually very young, because a lot of them are living with their parents. They're not buying houses, they're buying luxury items. And so I think that there is definitely a shift towards in the luxury market segment growing younger.
Your design is phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, it's an army of people that I kind of help to herd the cats in the process, because I think that's what a lot of brand work is making sure that everything is orchestrated and coordinated, and on the outside it should feel like one artist designed it, sort of like, at Apple it was like, Johnny Ives, but we don't have a Cadillac. There's no hero designer. Everyone is a hero designer, and it's really about editing and coordinating and orchestrating the work.
Other questions?
Design's fantastic.
Hi. I like your statement about herding the cats and with storytelling, but I want to know, how often do you collaborate again with other disciplines within GM in order to bring the brand to life?
Every day.
Can you walk us through?
Every day. And so, essentially the design is at least, at General Motors, a very crucial part of the whole business process, right? We're under the product development organization, but it's really embedded in everything that the company does. And so, while we're working on a brief for a new concept, we'll work with brand in terms of like, where do you think the brand is going to be in a few years? Or we look at the portfolio and see what are the peaks and valleys in it. And so that's from a strategic standpoint. Then once the design begins, we work very closely with within our marketing organization. There's a group that deals with brand strategy and brief creation, and especially on the production vehicles, we will have a brief that we agree on together for how this product is, what features does it have, how is it You know, what problems does it solve? How is it visually communicated? So I work very closely with the brand strategy group within marketing. Also, there's an experiential group that helps to bring these concepts, for example, to events. And it has become so much more, you know, the auto shows are essentially kind of dead, and the automotive industry has moved into kind of, you know, you have to get into the circuit of where your clientele is. So that has to be told as a story. You can't just park car on the grass. There has to be some story told around. So I work very closely with them, and as well as the communications department. Like every single of these concept vehicles that I showed had a press release that was crafted by messaging from designers. So it's a really tightly knit, collaborative process between design, marketing, and communications, at least from the brand side.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Yeah. One question I have is, when you guys do like storytelling, you guys rely heavily on storyboarding a lot for your sequencing, and also for stuff like that relies on like CGI, like the GTP prototype you mentioned. Like, what software you guys use for like animations as well?
Well, to answer your question about storyboarding, that's very important, especially in creating the animation or video work. And so, for example, I will work with our executive design director on understanding what is it that, you know, we're telling in terms of the story, and then create. And recently, I've been using Viscom AI to create little vignettes, like a 5 or 10 second video, and then I'll put them in a, you know, chronological order of how the story develops. And it's a very, very effective tool for me to come back to, you know, to my executive or to the team and say, is this what you were thinking, right? And you can already start embedding the visual identity, right? So if you want, you know, the images, you know, high saturation or black and white, or you embed that into the storyboarding as well. So you kind of have the concept and the look in one. And so then that makes it, whether then that's taken by, you know, a CG artist to make an animation, or whether that's given to a videographer to go and shoot on location, it really helps to keep an alignment between, you know, what's the ask, what's the expectation, and makes the process much more efficient as well, because you're not disconnected and trying to meet in some place. So that's one. And then, you know, for some work, we find that the animations are much more conducive to certain, you know, ideas. And then there are certain occasions where practical photography or videography is more useful. You know, especially like for example, for concepts. Whether, you know, they're built or theoretical, the CGI work comes very handy because something might not exist. But I find that especially in like, for example, a racing program that's becoming available, I think people want to see it, you know, physically on the track, and they want the realism. Although the AI is getting very, very good. And you know, I've noticed even in the recent months, like huge leaps in the improvement. So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's going to be one day where we don't even go on physical shoots, probably.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to come here and, you know, giving us this lecture. You know, a lot of the stuff in here is very insightful, very inspiring as well, a lot of wow factor. I don't really have a question. I just like wanted to pop out the fact like how great the storytelling is and how strong like the product is. Like through Cadillac, the storytelling like within itself, it's not you could tell it's very minimal, but it's like you don't have to do too much to tell the story. Like, you know, you talked about the dress was one thing that I really enjoyed. Like, it was something that you had in the archives, and then somebody came out that day, and it's like it just came out perfect. And I think a thing here that within school-wise, you do a lot with, like, your teacher assigns you a design package, and you have all these different, you know, things you have to deliver, but you don't have to, like, be robotic about it. You can be very intentional about everything, and everything can have a flow. And I think a lot of us, like, I think especially in a school environment, you struggle with, you know, getting it in on time and stuff, but you can make it a lot easier for yourself if you have, you know, you set the intent beginning.
Yeah.
Like how you talked about storyboarding is a big thing. Storyboard, mood board, aesthetics and stuff, so you're not struggling and guessing throughout, you know, your design process. So I just want to say thank you for coming out, and, you know, it was a very insightful lecture, so thank you.
I'm glad you find that helpful. Yeah, but I think having a very good brief at the beginning and then doing a storyboard to illustrate your design, I think are key.
I do have another
Yeah.
question. Could you briefly explain how the final decision is made in a design? I mean, who or what or how do you say, okay, let's go with this?
Yeah, that is a very good question. So of course the studios within the GM structure are guided by an executive design director. And so that's a person that I work very closely with. And so the executive design director, who kind of sees the project from the beginning to end, along with the vice president of design, will ultimately have the say of what sketch is selected, or, you know, what type of an experience is the best for a product. So it's really within kind of the powers of the executive design director for each brand at GM. But I've worked with executives who are very, you know, very much about crowdsourcing opinions and really listen to what, you know, what the designers have to say. And so, for example, if, you know, there's a soundtrack to a video that reflects the design better, and it's different than, you know, his or her opinion, then that will be taken into account. So it's you know, it's not the executive has, you know, has the kind of the final say, but I think that the environment that I work in is open to soliciting opinion. So it's, you know, very much informed by designers.
Yeah, to second that, thank you so much. It was a really beautiful lecture and great to see inside of the process a little bit. I was wondering, it's an obvious question maybe for me, but I'm curious about Cadillac House and how that, because it's relatively new, right? So how that has affected either your process or how things are sold, or like just what's the relationship of that building? How has it changed maybe how you think about branding or even sales, things like that?
Yeah, well, so the Celestic is, you know, is a new enterprise process for Cadillac, and it's really it's a process that existed decades ago when Harley Earl joined General Motors, and he came from coach building and working with movie stars in Hollywood, and so it was a very much a kind of a one-on-one, you know, bespoke design process, and we've kind of revived it in the modern day context. And so I think that the process is having an impact on how some of the higher tier models in the portfolio are, you know, being launched with special programs, like, for example, the CT5 curated by Cadillac. So it has a trickle down effect on how you know, how vehicles are, created or sold, and in terms of definitely an impact in terms of the options for personalization. But it's, and it's all the Cadillac House also. We actually had one of the clients who came from hospitality industry, and he was designing his Celestic, and I've heard comments that he really very much enjoyed the experience. And so I think like getting compliments from someone who comes from hospitality is it's high marks. So the experience part, not just the fact that you have an option to so many choices and you have a kind of a guide or a Sherpa through the process, but that experience itself is really important. And the environment, because I think that the building is so rich in history, and you're really, if someone is really passionate about the culture and or even mid-century modern, it's kind of a treat to come to the heart of the industry and be in this building that signified modernist architecture.
Do they ever do open house days or times
They-
that a person could?
They do,
person.
and actually that's how Gretchen found her way. So from time to time, obviously, having tours through a working organization is, somewhat disruptive, and so it doesn't happen very often. But there are times where we collaborate with organizations or foundations that offer tour. I was recently, I think that there was a group from Cranbrook, and sometimes I'm, part of the storytelling. But so occasionally, like, be on the lookout if you want to come, because it might be part of like Cranbrook and GM Technical Center and Cadillac House package. It's it's very, very worthwhile to take that opportunity. Yeah. So rare, but it does happen.
And this is maybe a general question for both of you. What opportunities are there for student groups to learn more about the work that's done at Cadillac? Because there's so much. I mean, people tend to think about car design as the profile of the exterior, but there's so much. And it was very exciting knowing about your work over the last few years and seeing things like the polo kit or the bird calls, and not to mention the interiors and so many of the other, the lighting, the way that the screens in the back of the, I could tell that every single aspect of it is considered.
Yeah.
And so how can students learn more about that?
Well, one, like if you want to immediately learn about that, go to the GM Design Instagram, which Krista's team heads. And
it's at GM Design.
It's General Motors Design Instagram, right? But it has a really broad type of work that we share, and it is from the traditional exterior sketch or rendering to user experience or industrial design. And you mentioned the polo kit. Polo set. That was something that was designed in collaboration with the product design team within the industrial design studio. And the way that we're structured is there are vehicle studios, so Cadillac is one of the brands, and then there's industrial design studio, which is actually quite large and encompasses anything from product design to graphic design to environmental design to performance accessories to photography, videography, etc. So so I think the first path is just go check out what kind of work we post, and then if you have questions, reach out to me and reach out to Krista. We'll leave our contact info. But I would say overall, in terms of emphasis of what is happening within the automotive design industry, I think that there's a lot of emphasis on the experience and creating the user experience, the user interface, but larger customer experience, because it doesn't end just with the vehicle, and goes into web and and mobile and experience at events or dealerships, and so I think that across the design industry, I think it's pretty clear that everyone is really focused on creating experiences that are intuitive and inspiring and really kind of tailored to interests and tastes. Mm-hmm.
Do we have time for any more questions?
Mm-hmm.
Questions from the audience? I'd love to hear more about your trajectory as a fine artist and how that manifests in the work that you do now.
So, as I mentioned before, I went to Pratt Institute to study industrial design. But prior to that, I was a fine artist. I was a painter. I studied art history. I was born in Poland, so I was, in a city that was really rich in both historical and contemporary art, and really kind of grew up around it. And so it was sort of a natural thing for me to become an artist. And I lived and I worked in art in the Chicago area before realizing that I really wanted to have a larger audience for the work that I was creating. And so I was looking for a design program, and then someone I knew handed me the Newsweek magazine that had the feature of Aisha and Bruce, and I was like, I want to think like that. I want to, because it was very much, to me, it was very much artful thinking and kind of poetic thinking through metaphor. And I had all this, art historical background. I had all this, painting and 2D experience, and I was a practicing artist, exhibiting artist. And then when I discovered Pratt, it really added this other dimension of, first of all, you're creating for the industry, and that's a very large audience, and also training myself in the three-dimensional design language, which Pratt was really great at. And so it was really a combination of, my kind of natural tendencies or inclinations of thinking kind of in a poetic way, and having a good 2D foundation, and then adding 3D to it, and understanding how, it's really art and business coming together. And then, when I started at General Motors, there was no position of brand designer, brand creative direction. It was still very much compartmentalized. And we were talking about this a couple of days ago, that I think that the work that I do is sort of like what CMF was maybe about 10 years ago. There really weren't, official color material finish programs. Maybe about a decade ago, they kind of started sprouting in academia. But because before that, it was, you were coming from, interior design, and then you were hired in as a CMF designer, or you were textile pattern designer, and you end up. So I feel like this idea of brand thinking within the design studio is still relatively fresh. Although I'm seeing that, some automotive companies now have, instead of having an executive design director, they'll have a chief creative officer. And I think that's the direction where things are kind of heading, is that designing the form of the steering wheel is not kind of the boundary of what a designer does. It's become so much more interdisciplinary, and the collaboration between the different departments, like I mentioned, marketing or communications, is much more embedded in today's work process.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question that I know is really hard, because I used to get it and I get it sometimes, but what do you look for in a portfolio for a designer? What do you and your colleagues look for?
Krista, maybe you can help me with that.
And I know there's many different roles, and but
Yeah, kind of a hard question for me because I'm not a designer, but I actually have an HR background. But working in the outreach and development group, we actually have designer. We have a designer on our team that actually helps to look at portfolios and reviews them. When we're looking for interns or full-time hires. So I think it's just important to have a wide variety of things in your portfolio. If you can have interior, so, if you're focusing on automotive, I guess, if you're doing automotive, we would want to have interior and exterior. But we also look at, it doesn't necessarily have to be automotive either. So I think it's just important, whatever you're focusing on, to have a wide variety. And I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think part of the outreach at General Motors is the YMAT program, right, which is about nurturing the talent of young people in design and sculpting, and so it's really kind of connecting with the outreach so they can guide you into what a good portfolio would look like. But I think and I actually don't review student work very often, but once in a while I'll go to a school for like a end of semester review, and of course there's from a visual standpoint, it's about how well you express your ideas, and it doesn't really matter which medium. Is it a line sketch? Is it a photograph or AI or whatever? But it's really about because I think that really at the core of what designers do is that they have to, you give them direction and they'll come up with the representation for it, right? Or they'll take an idea and express it, and it really doesn't matter whether it's 2D, 3D, a line. It has to be effective. So I think that's an important having visual sensitivity is important, and I think that some of it is innate, but some of it is trained. I think a lot of my visual sensitivity was trained at Pratt by working with my hands, making these 3D forms and looking and evaluating, seeing hierarchy. So like understanding of the basic concept principles or three-dimensional design or 2D design is important too.
Yeah, and I was just going to add one more thing. One of the things that our leadership really, really looks at is ideation sketches. So the more, they want to know, how did you get to the final
the process,
design?
the thinking
the
process.
process, and a lot of sketches. I can't say that enough. I guess they want to look. When they come to the industry days or whatever, they want to see your sketchbook. They want to see all of those sketches and the process of how you got to where you are at the end. So.
okay. Well, I think that concludes our day. Thank you so much, Alexandra.
Did you make it in time? Did we make it in time?
Yes, we made it in time. And thank you all for being here. Alexandra's going to get a chance to see the Affleck House this evening.
I'm very excited about it because I
very
love
excited
architecture.
about. Yeah, and I think given the work that she's been doing with the
Cadillac
Tech
House,
Center,
yeah.
like it'll be interesting to see. And that segues to our next Design and Tech lecture on April 2nd, which is about the Affleck House.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. There's always some.